Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. You know, I could say a great deal about the episode of Billboard Breakdown that I made last week. In fact, I'm gonna say a decent bit about it. And if you don't care for any of it, the timestamp to skip ahead in the description. Have fun. Because where I expected the most backlash coming from my opinions on Walker Hayes or Tyler the Creator, both of whom had a bigger impact this week that we're gonna have to talk about. But I guess I should have been more prepared for the response describing a questionable sales tactic skirting around ISRC rules used by Columbia to inflate a certain act's sales numbers, where my commentary was more denigrating Billboard for allowing the loophole in their system to persist in order to attract more clicks and traffic from that act's fan base. A tactic that, for the record, was not really denied by the thousands of responses I received in between the fan cams, the attempted ratios, the accusations of being in the pockets of competing labels, which I did actually kind of find was really funny given that no record label, indie or major, is safe on my show. But I should also note, in the historical discussions of the Hot 100 to come, this will introduce an asterisk to the charting success, in the same way that stream trolling will have asterisks alongside Drake, or how Tidal inflated numbers in 2016 for Beyonce and Kanye West, or the interlabel fighting between 6ix9ine and Ariana Grande in 2020, or more of a fight in the management for number one, or how the Harlem Shake went to number one on bad chart calculations in 2013, when Billboard brought in U2 because of their last major screw-up in 2012, seeing Maroon 5's One More Night rob Gangnam Style of the top spot, when Gangnam Style was far more relevant, or how in the mid to late 90s, because of how labels timed the release of singles versus the radio, the charts became completely unrepresentative until they changed the rules, or the dodgy payola of the 70s, that in certain quarters absolutely still exist in some form today, be it on the radio or on streaming platforms. Look, the point is that this is the sort of music industry nonsense I go on about every single week with the Hot 100 on this show, and again, no act, no label gets a pass. I've been doing this since 2014. My record speaks for itself. And what made it all a little bit sad to me is that it's being done, all the backlash is to chase a constructed number one on Billboard, where if next week they tweak the weighting of the radio or the streaming, number one could change like that, which eventually will happen if other labels put pressure on Billboard, which I all hope you understand by now. And yet, that's kind of what I found a little bit mystifying about all this, because if this act is really as big and culturally omnipresent as the fanbase told me at length last week, where I don't even need to mention the name and y'all already know who they are, you shouldn't have to do this. Especially as they are aligned with a major label and Columbia could be working the English language record at radio should they want to. Hell, they did it with their big single last year, after all. But I reckon their promotional team realized very quickly, why the hell should we spend money to work a radio record or get playlist placement on streaming when we can sell multiple copies of the same song to the fan base and then make money doing it? And of course, you can spend your money however you want to. I own a vinyl copy of Machine Gun Kelly's Tickets to My Downfall, and that's just about as pointless as the next copy of this act's current charting hit that's being bought that's functionally identical. But any illusion that this band is an underdog when their home country's government changed the laws surrounding compulsory military service so that the band can keep working, it's just that. It's an illusion that Big Hit and Columbia constructed to make you do their work for them. Hell, I even spoke to some fans that know that Columbia's not doing enough in their eyes to work the song on the radio, so they feel like they gotta do it anyway to give the band the success that they think they deserve. I mean, it must be super fucking hard for them. Go ask any act on RCA not named Doja Cat what failure to promote really looks like. And while my subjective experience with art doesn't really correlate with how popular it might be, I know for a lot of folks the emotional experience of it is heightened. And you know, that's a fascinating conversation that speaks to how art and the artist is valued and framed and branded in a capitalist society, and how we then respond and interact to that society. But that's not the conversation that the fan base wanted to have. I don't think they wanted to have a conversation at all. That's why I'm actually saying something here instead of just shutting up and moving on, with the the full knowledge that nothing is going to change, and in fact it could just get worse coming after this. Because among a lot of other fellow journalists and critics, there is a growing consensus that they don't even want to cover this act going forward due to a lot of stan behavior, which kind of seems counterintuitive to any sense of positive cultural presence that you're looking to cultivate. Your reputation precedes you, and it's not one that you want, especially long term. But the other half is, oh shit. Even without mentioning anything positive or negative about the music itself, I think got hit with, you know what, I think it's the third most abuse I've received while being on YouTube. Sorry, you're not beating Shawn Mendes fans in 2016 in the aftermath of Illuminate, or the time that I actually got attacked at a black metal show in person. Because, you know, some of us have to go outside and actually experience the consequences of our words directly. I dare say that some of y'all wouldn't be able to take the heat in the same way. If you talk shit, you run the risk of getting hit. Especially if you gave up your shield of anonymity like I have. Which, sure, consequences of having a platform, one I kind of brought on myself, but one that doesn't skirt around what it was done by individuals to target it. I will say the Forbes article that was initially quoting me, minus context and without any request for comment, that was new. That was a fun set of emails to write to their corrections department to bring all that context into view, of which I'm pleased is now actually there, but it did spark an interesting response of, well, why didn't you get a comment from the fan base about your video and in your tweet thread talking about the video? As if said fan base has a spokesperson or a hierarchy or enough organization that they would deign to hold themselves collectively accountable for anything. But my answer to that is kind of simple. Even though I don't write for a traditional masthead and I really have no interest in doing so, I also work to maintain some journalistic standards and integrity as a critic who observed the tactic, did my research, and then reported on it. And in my discussions with some of these fans that I've actually been having in good faith for years now, especially given how often I have covered this act, I know why it was done. The tactic might be new, but the rationale sure as hell isn't. And even if I think chasing the popular veneer that most enriches a record label at the literal expense of the audience, I mean, I get it. So, when the response to me reporting on it was some pretty standard analysis and commentary, the same way I've been doing since 2014 for with every act that's crossed my docket, when the response is abuse, multiple attempts to hack my social media and YouTube accounts, which, by the way, it's a fine way to convince me that any attempt at good faith is out the window, and that initial Forbes article did not help matters, along with comments ranging from the co-option of social justice language to support a capitalist paradigm that doesn't just missed the mark in targeting the reporter, not the label perpetuating said bad paradigm, but also how it doesn't seem consistent with how said fans have behaved with even other groups from their home country. I mean, don't you want to uplift everyone, not just your favorite band? Or do you think I'm not paying attention to all the social media infighting where whataboutism is not the excuse that you think it is? To the comments of, oh, you know what, he deserved it. He ran his mouth, as if he thinks he's allowed to have an opinion. As if to absolve you for collective targeting under the misbegotten belief somehow that I deserve this. For reporting the facts, not even stating my opinion on the song. It wasn't even backlash for a negative review. I've been getting that for damn near a decade. I know the difference that comes with method and degree. And those of us who have actually been on the wrong side of an abusive relationship, we know when lines are crossed between constructive criticism and abuse. What was done to me the past week should not be acceptable. It goes well beyond liberal good faith discourse. And the knowledge that if I was a person of color or a woman or more openly queer, the tidal wave would have been twice to 10 times as bad. But you can't silence me. Especially when you've just given me so much more material, so much more data to work with. And you know, I think I got my comment. Thanks for that. But now on to the regular affair. Our top 10, where for another week, Butter by BTS is at number 1. Predominantly on sales, as expected, although this was the week they shipped out more physical copies. In other words, Columbia actually had to do something, so even as the radio stalls and the streaming tanks, this will remain on top. For now, it does hold back Good For You by Olivia Rodrigo at number 2, which is dominant on streaming and surging on the radio, but given how it cannot quite match that sales margin, it's not making any more ground, at least not yet. What did make some ground was Kiss Me More by Doja Cat featuring SZA at number 3, where it made one last radio push with the album Bomb, shoring up some of that streaming, but with even weaker sales, let's get real, wasn't getting any higher. It did knock back Levitating by Dua Lipa featuring DaBaby at number 4, but with that song peaking on the radio, static in sales, and stalling on streaming, it's not going to get any higher either. But then we have our big top 5 debut that some are already calling a disappointment because it didn't get higher, Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran at number 5. Now, I'll be getting more into this song at the end of the show, but the industry is throwing a lot behind this. Robust sales, strong streaming, and YouTube, and a pretty sizable radio deal to boot. They clearly want to make this a pretty huge hit. The question will be whether it actually happens or last. It did land above Leave the Door Open by Silk Sonic at number 6, which did have a pretty good sales week, but the radio's slipping hard, only surpassed by Peaches by Justin Bieber featuring Daniel Caesar and Giveon, falling to number 7 as its radio just outright collapsed. Then we have Montero, Call Me By Your Name by Lil Nas X, holding at number 8, mostly thanks to radio gains and strong enough streaming. I think there's a bit of a gamble here that more songs will collapse above it, but will it be enough in time? It did hold up over Save Your Tears by The Weeknd and Ariana Grande at number 9, but that song is imploding as it is, no surprises there. And then stranded at number 10, we got Deja Vu by Olivia Rodrigo. And while for me, the song's a bit of an afterthought in comparison with some of the singles around it, it is still going strong on the radio and the streaming is not bad. There is actually a real audience still propping this up, even if that audience is not me. On the flip side, given that we are dealing with 2 album bombs, mostly, following a solid month of them, let's get to our sizable list of losers and dropouts, and there were some big ones. Clinching their year-end list spots, we have What You Know About Love by the late Pop Smoke, Time Today by Moneybagg Yo, Up by Cardi B. What is the odds that this is eventually dropped from the album when they eventually push it out? I could put money on that one. And also Beatbox and all of its remixes by Spot 'em Got 'em. But we also have songs that are on the edge or cusp or just clinched their year-end list position, like No More Parties by Coi Leray in the remix with Lil Durk, or We're Good by Dua Lipa, or What's Next by Drake, along with cuts that unfortunately fell short, like Quicksand by Murray, or less unfortunately, Nobody by Dylan Scott. And as expected, a full quarter of the Hot 100 lost this week, so... Alright, Ball If I Want To by DaBaby fell off the debut to 56, Returns Like Come Through by her and Chris Brown, and Tombstone by Rod Wave hit 91 and 97 respectively, and gains from last week lost momentum, like Build a Bitch by Bella Porch at 67, Fiel by Los Legendarios, Wizen and Jay Cortez, Things a Man Ought to Know by Lainey Wilson at 70, and Miss the Rage by Trippie Redd and Playboy Cardi at 98. This song just cannot catch stability. Then we have the album bomb cuts that are on their way out. From Olivia Rodrigo, we have Traitor at 39, Happier at 58, Favorite Crime at 62, Brutal at 73, and Jealousy Jealousy at 89. From Migos, Straightenins at 61, and Having Our Way with Drake's at 82. And still from J. Cole, we've got My Life with 21 Savage and Murray at 65. Then we got songs that have clinched their spots and are heading out naturally. My Ex's Best Friend by Machine Gun Kelly and Black Bear at 43, Calling My Phone by Lil TJ and Black at 46, and surprisingly Trackstar by Mooski at 71. And as for the rest, Settling Down by Miranda Lambert at 52, Hats Off by Lil Baby, Lil Durk, and Travis Scott at 72, probably could put that in the album bomb slot too, One Too Many by Keith Urban and Pink at 74, How Is This Still Around? Breaking Up Was Easy in the 90s by Sam Hunt at 79, Minimum Wage by Blake Shelton at 80, Made For You by Jake Owen at 83, and Country Again to round out the country by Thomas Rhett at 86. Now, where things get kind of depressing come into some of our gains this week, especially with no returns. Yeah, you could have predicted that Lumberjack by Tyler the Creator leaping up to 45, and Need to Know by Doja Cat's going up to 49 thanks to their album success. But now we're seeing gains for Drinkin' Beer, Talkin' God Amen by Chase Rice featuring Florida Georgia Line continuing up to 50. And more distressingly, Fancy Like by Walker Hayes at 34. Keep in mind, Nashville has not thrown the might of radio behind this yet. The streaming is so-so at best. People are buying this at shocking rates because I'm assuming the TikTok virality, and you know, it's just good to have one of those easy songs to plug up your worst list, because the way this is going, America is going to ignore all of my advice. Nashville will eventually get on board. It will become a hit. Just watch. Anyway, we're in a double album bomb situation, but only really from Tyler the Creator, and that's not bad given that I've already reviewed his album in a solo review, and if you want to check out that, go to my main channel. But for all the songs that fell below the top 40 and are not among the best or worst of the week, Rise with Daisy World at 100, WILSHIRE at 95, Manifesto with Domo Genesis at 84, Run It Up featuring Teezo Touchdown at 68, MASSA at 66, Sweet I Thought You Wanted to Dance featuring Brent Faiyaz and Fana Hues at 60, Sir BAUDELAIRE featuring DJ Drama at 59, and Lemonhead featuring 42 Doug at 42. But alright, let's move on to our healthy list of new arrivals, starting with number 93, Get Into It Yeah by Doja Cat.
Get into it, yo. If you go to church, I said get into it, yo. Like if she ain't got a butt, I fucking get into it, yo.
I guess you always want to include a good yeah, it gets the people going. Anyway, Doja Cat didn't quite qualify to get enough songs for an album bomb, which paradoxically means I'm covering all of them here, starting with a track that actually was not produced nor written by Dr. Luke, and wow, this hook feels very Playboy Cardi, at least until Doja Cat opens up a little bit to belt alongside verses that owe a very obvious debt to Nicki Minaj and their manic flow and intensity. Not saying this is bad, the production feels depressingly basic and the weedy synth line and the chalky trap groove, but Doja Cat has enough personality to make her flexes feel at least a little bit more interesting. But I'm gonna say it, the name dropping on both the verses and the outro feel a little like a misstep, especially as she's trying to establish her own flavor, and she can do that. I mean, it's fine, maybe like with Coi Leray, I like women doing Playboy Cardi shtick more than him doing it, but beyond that, I can take or leave it. Just saying. Number 80, Woman by Doja Cat.
Woman, 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 I can be your woman. Woman, woman, woman.
Alright, next song, we got the album opener, and why am I now reminded of when Nicki Minaj opened up Queen with Ganja Burn? From the bassy emphasis on clattering Afrobeats, then we get the name drop of Rihanna in the second verse. But okay, in reality, the song takes a different tack. The more textured percussion playing off the keys and the thicker bass groove does give this a slightly different flavor, and the content is more focused on distinctly feminine empowerment, which initially had me kind of perturbed that so much of this song is about being such a woman for some guy, especially given how she ends the first verse by mentioning it. But then by the second verse, I remembered that Doja Cat's bi, and the song does kind of balance itself out a little bit. Beyond that, maybe it's the very repetitive hook, but the entire song feels a little bit flat to me. Not bad per se, but not really something that's grabbing me more. I'll say that. Number 78, Beggin by Maneskin.
So put your love in the hand out, baby. I'm begging, begging you. So put your love in the hand out, darling.
Alright, look, every year I get questions as to why I don't talk about Eurovision, and look, I've watched it before. It's not my thing. Acts that have already established themselves outside of the show can feel like they're slumming it. The pop approach as a whole can get a bit stale. And there's a part of me that finds it kind of weird conflating pop songs with nationalism, especially when you know all about the politics taken very seriously with Eurovision behind the scenes. But on occasion, you do get acts that can use the competition for some worldwide traction. That was a big thing for ABBA back in the day. And it seems to be happening with Maneskin, an Italian rock band who's now seeing a lot of global success with a bunch of English language cuts. Now this is a song that they cut in 2017, a cover of an old Four Seasons song from 1967, and look, I am not one to praise Frankie Valli if I have to, but when he stayed away from his screechy upper register to go for a song with a little more swagger, he wound up with a solid 60s rock song. Maneskin, meanwhile, has a frontman who sounds absolutely terrible, the sort of guy who was trying way too hard to be sexy with his fried out drawl against a mix that's got none of the depth or punch of vintage mastering. Given how unsupported everything feels, it feels like a really bad demo or just unfinished. It feels like an attempt at retro that utterly misses the point how to do it well with no texture and Yeah, it kinda sucks. There's Eurovision songs that at least attempt to have more of a budget and polish than this, so next! Next up, number 57, I Don't Do Drugs by Doja Cat featuring Ariana Grande.
I just want you, but I don't do drugs.
Is it in bad taste for me to say I don't really believe either of them with the song title? Not even to apply addiction or what type of drugs, just I'm a little skeptical. Anyway, it's one of those songs that conflates loves to drugs and how much they want a connection to their lover, and yet I get the feeling that given this collaboration, this should be way better than it is. The backing vocal arrangement, it's trying to be very breathy and supple, but the leaden bass groove, the cheap sounding hi-hats, the ugly, oily synth touches that only serve to clutter up the flute melody, just highlight how much of an awkward fit this really is. Not helped by Doja Cat and Ariana Grande not quite being on the same page when it comes to vocal intensity, where Doja Cat's really trying to ramp things up for her verse, and then Ariana's leaning to a lot of breathy effortlessness that some have actually called lazy, but I'm more inclined to say she is just good enough to pull it off. But even then, this kind of leaves me cold, the sort of over-arranged pop song that doesn't flatter everyone here as well as it should. Again, not bad, but this should be better. Number 55, CORSO by Tyler, the Creator.
Never know we crumbs. He ain't talked to his bitch in 3 days. It ain't gotta be this way. I'm down for the threesome.
You know, I think this might be my favorite song right now from Call Me If You Get Lost, even if I can recognize some of the flaws. I really wish the bass was better mixed, but it does somewhat fit the ramshackle acoustic vibe with the buzzy keys, the pianos, and Tyler's guttural delivery, and he is really on point with this song. I like how much swagger that he brings to this track, where if he's potentially stealing someone's girl, he's actually down for the threesome, and then to cuss out his label, where he admits that he doesn't even like to use the word bitch, but it sounded cool when he did, which might as well be the underlying ethos to a lot of wordplay throughout his entire career. And you know, I like by the time the song swings around for the final verse, he admits that the hookup did not work, and he shouldn't have pursued it, and he's kind of a bad person that he did, and he's now going to try to wash it all away. The lines at the very end are superb. Remember, I was rich, so I bought me some new emotions and a new boat, cause I'd rather cry in the ocean. Especially after DJ Drama cranked up the crowd noise behind him. Not only does this feel like it encapsulates everything that I really liked about this album, it might be one of Tyler's strongest bangers to date. Great song, highly recommended. Really can't wait to hear it live. Number 51, Red Light, Green Light by DaBaby.
Thinking nigga guy here capping, I'm not these rappers. You gon' have to cap your ass off and back on it, big on me. Big. How about that bitch with that shit on me? Pull my dick out, sit me down and she sit on it. Get them niggas a green light, they gon' get on you. Red light, green light.
Okay, is someone in DaBaby's camp gonna call for an intervention? Because when I can pick up on the social media backlash to this with a healthy dose of laughter, somebody should be ringing all of the alarm bells. Because while I didn't like his last single, that was more generic, borderline competent. Whereas this is just bad. When the production from DA Got That Dope is getting openly mocked online as sounding reminiscent of SpongeBob with the pan flute and the painfully cheap sounding trap beat, or maybe a sea shanty, you know you're on a downward spiral. But then you have to add in how DaBaby barely even sounds like he cares and can even get in the pocket on the hook. Was he getting tips from Blueface or something for how sloppy this all is? And somehow it actually gets worse from there. Let's put aside the fact the song is based on a reference to Red Light, Green Light, the child's game. We then have multiple poop jokes that probably do not help his white seats amidst all the sex references, and I'm starting to wonder if DaBaby is trying to tell us something here else entirely that I otherwise did not need to know. Beyond that, it's just standard DaBaby material, but this might be his worst single to date by a country mile. He's becoming a parody of himself, and if he thinks he's getting a 10 for whatever he drops next, frankly, I might just expect a flush. Number 48, Hot Wind Blows by Tyler, the Creator featuring Lil Wayne.
Find us. We playing hide and seek with the passports. Where the fuck we at? Oh, the pilot gotta remind us.
And you know, on the topic of poop jokes, alright, but seriously, Lil Wayne's been known to bring his A game when he works with Tyler, and it's just as true here, because this really slaps coming off the textured and sandy drums, the flutes, and that Penny Godwin sample behind them, which is actually impeccably balanced. See, he can do it if he wants to. I like how the whistles are interwoven across the song to epitomize how he's flying in the air, especially how Tyler uses it as punctuation. I like how DJ Drama provides some great hype man texture, and then Lil Wayne, he just snaps here. The bars all interweave well, the sports references connect but sound effortless, and then he goes into a double time flow and it goes off perfectly. This is the sort of classier flex I actually kind of like. We're just bragging better. And when it sounds this sort of breezy and cool, I gotta respect it. Great song. Number 41, AM by Neo Garcia, J Balvin, and Bad Bunny. Alright, look, at this point, I could just swap out my reviews for a lot of reggaeton and drop them in here. Stock percussion that feels stiffer than it should, lazy, hazy synth melodies mostly left in the background. All three singers not really having much in the way of interplay for a pretty standard sex jam, where I'm most distracted by J Balvin saying he'd go to the gym to work out with the girl, Bad Bunny then targeting someone with a boyfriend and offering to help her with homework if she's in college. At least I hope she's in college. And Neo Garcia feeling like a guest star on his own song. In other words, like with most reggaeton, I am probably missing something in the translation, but I sure as hell don't really care much more about this. Number 40, Juggernauts by Tyler the Creator featuring Lil Uzi Vert and Pharrell. So I said this in the review of the album. This is almost certainly one of those tracks that's gonna go off way better live at a festival than on record. After the gentle bounce of the intro, the rattling trap percussion and the bass just swamps out the entire song, alongside the air horns where even the vocals sound out a little drowned, especially when Tyler tries to go a little higher for the hook and he does not sound great. Beyond that, it's a brand name flex where, to my amazement, Pharrell actually comes out sounding the best. He's not known for being great as a lyricist, but that Sun Surface line was cool, his flow was on point, and unlike Lil Uzi Vert, I couldn't swap out his verse with anything else he said in recent memory, except for Uzi's line where he signs his John Hancock on a bitch every time he checks them. Given what's been coming out about Uzi recently, just charming. I don't know, I'm left thinking this should go off way harder than it does. It's not bad, but with this mix, or away from this mix, it should be better. Number 24, Ain't Shit by Doja Cat.
All up in your face, can't pay rent. Look at what you did. Listen to your friends when they say niggas ain't shit. 'Cause
So apparently this is one of the songs from Doja Cat's album that was very highly anticipated before the release, and while I think I get why to a predominantly female audience who want their pretty effective kiss-off anthem, it's not exactly a good one. Doja Cat sings most of this in a stilted upper register off the very clipped piano line before the let-in trap percussion drops in, and even if she's playing up a more cartoony persona, which actually kind of works given the content, given how methodically she cusses out this guy's dad and then threatens to rat him out to his mom, by the time she starts the second verse, it starts really coming around to getting grating. I think if this had a little bit more groove or flow, it might hold together a bit better, or just go completely zany in more of an Ashniko vein, I might like it, but the awkward middle ground does not help here. Not really a fan. Number 14, Was Ya Name by Tyler the Creator featuring Youngboy Never Broke Again and Ty Dolla $ign.
Girlfriend, what's your name? What's your name, girlfriend? What's your name?
I found it really funny watching the shocked reaction to Youngboy Never Broke Again on a Tyler the Creator album on social media. I mean, given what the song is, a pretty basic swing for some girl's affection, this is something that Youngboy can pull off beyond the meme, and he's got the energy and tightness in his delivery to match with Tyler's bounce off the liberal H-Town sample behind them, with Ty Dolla $ign handling all the ad-libs. It's got a vintage pickup track vibe, and the sincerity that everyone brings to bear with slightly more original flexing, Tyler taking the girl to Cannes, Youngboy hoping that his time is more valuable to the girl than all the brands that he brought her. It makes them all seem pretty damn likable. Honestly, I got no expectations of how well this could do, given that Tyler has pushed none of the album to radio, but I would not mind this sticking around. Really good stuff. I like this. Check it out. Next up, number 11, You Right by Doja Cat featuring The Weeknd.
can't help it, I want you. Say you right. Got my guy, but I can't help it, I want you.
Why is it the highest charting new single from Doja Cat with The Weeknd, and the music video just so happens to be produced and co-written by Dr. Luke? I mean, I'm not surprised. He's got to cash in his meal tickets somehow. Anyway, the song, wow, does not give me that much to work with. And I really have to point a lot of fingers at the production for this. Why does Dr. Luke think that this cloud rap thing for Doja Cat that feels increasingly canned and lacking any sort of expansive flair is a good fit for the skill sets of everyone involved? Especially with both Doja Cat and The Weeknd sounding better in recent years on more liquid retro groove. I mean, this is something they can both work for them. Doja Cat opts for more restrained crooning as she yearns to cheat on her boyfriend with this new guy, presumably played by The Weeknd. And you know, am I the only one who feels a little bit skeeved out by how much that he mentioned that this boyfriend is in the picture and is someone he knows, especially as there's a much weaker implication that The Weeknd may also be cheating here? Alright, look, this sort of hookup jam feels kinda automatic for the two of them, but that might be the problem. It feels like both of them are doing something that they could easily do on autopilot, not make a song with more flair or color or groove that you know they could. They've done it before within your eyes. So yeah, I guess it's fine, but will it stick around? Will it be memorable? Kinda doubt it. Just saying. And finally, number 5, Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran.
Conversations with a stranger I barely know, swearing this will be the last, but it probably won't. I got nothing left to lose or use or do.
At this point with Ed Sheeran, the backlash is now so entrenched, I literally had no gauge of what this song would even be before hearing it. Because as much as the industry wants this to be a hit, there's a very vocal audience who wants this to fail and fail hard. I did know it was going to be a little bit more pop, which, okay, come on, I remember the darker touches of Sing and Shape of You, it's not new territory. So where do we wind up? Well, okay, outside of a music video that looks utterly ridiculous, and the fact that there are cuts all over Niall Horan's last album that would eat this for breakfast while playing in the same territory, I think if I have an immediate issue with this song, it comes with how soft and ironically toothless it feels. I mean, I remember Bloodstream and some of the darker cuts that show just how much Ed Sheeran can write about some darker, grimier subject matter, especially if he's talking about his own bad habits and really trying to work that parallel with The Weeknd in terms of substance abuse and then hooking up with exes. But there's no palpable edge or darkness to this arrangement here. The groove is painfully underweight, sounds very clean. Ed Sheeran is all in his upper register and falsetto. There's no sense of greater, palpable atmosphere, and a maddening lack of specifics means that this has no real power. I mean, Shape of You had more personality than this, and Ed Sheeran is known for his weird, offbeat lyrical detail. Honestly, as much as Ed Sheeran has expressed terror at becoming an industry player, this approach to writing and that music video, it is being an industry player, and it feels soulless. I know Ed Sheeran's better than this, but if he's gonna stop trying, I think I'm gonna stop caring. Just saying. But you know, it's not the worst this week, which was really all over the damn place. That is going to Red Light, Green Light by DaBaby, with dishonorable mention, yeah, I'll say it, Beggin by Maneskin. I'm sorry, those vocals just utterly killed the song for me. Just awful, and somehow Frankie Valli sounds better. Thankfully, Tyler the Creator brought in enough to save the week, with CORSO as the best and Hot Wind Blowns with Lil Wayne as the honorable mention. Both terrific stuff. The album's actually holding up pretty well for me. That's really nice to hear. But next week, see, I just have no idea. We might get a slowdown with the charts snapping back to something close to normal, but this many album bombs in, who knows what normal even is. Well, stay tuned to find out. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse.